So that's why you need to scan that QR code. And I promise I won't do anything with your name afterwards. I'm just going to delete it. And if everyone is in, and I don't see any more people coming, I think we should begin our talk. And do scan, continue scanning, put your name on. I will show it again at the end, don't worry. We are discussing security with the JDK. I'm going to start with why I chose this subject and why I consider this subject important for you. And let me ask you a question before we start, actually. Do you think security is important? Who thinks security is important? Raise your hand. Almost everyone, probably everyone. I hope everyone thinks that security is important. But let me ask you something. You are Java developers, I guess. I might be tempted to believe you are Java developers since you are here discussing about the JDK. So who worked with collections in Java? Everyone. Who worked with Streams API in Java? There for, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years since Java 8, no? Let's try something else. Date and time API. Almost everyone again. Oh my God, you're really experts. Security API. Only a few hands. Oh my God, and you said security is important. How is that? You worked with collections, Streams API, date and time. Reflection? Maybe even reflection has more hands up than security. Then why don't you know about the security API in Java? Don't you think this is something we need to discuss and provide a little bit more attention to? I'm Laurențiu Spilcă. If you might not know me at all, but if you do know me, it's most likely either because of one of the books I wrote, a couple of them I have with me there, or my YouTube channel. If you don't know my YouTube channel, or you didn't join me already on social media, please join and subscribe. I will be glad to have you there. I'm active, I answer questions, and I have many friends. Okay, there are so many third parties, and as a consultant, because that's what I'm doing for a living, I'm consulting applications. Usually Java applications, Java technologies. I'm discussing about architecture. And whenever someone needs to implement something basic, like cryptography, we're going to discuss about a few things you can do. I always see them adding dependencies to their POM XML file or whatever they use for dependency management for different things, different dependencies, just to implement stuff they could have done using just the JDK. A few alternatives are, you might know them, Google Think, libsodium, Apache Shiro. And the question is why? If you need to create a digital signature, or if you need to encrypt some data, you don't need any of these dependencies. Of course, you can use them, but they don't necessarily bring you something better. What I want you to know after this talk is that a lot of things, at least the basics, and we will write them together as long as we have time. We have 30 minutes. It's not a lot. But we will try a few of them at least and prove you that you can do from the simplest things and the basics directly with the JDK without needing to add any dependency. And using the JDK and not a separate dependency gives you also advantages. Remember, the footprint of the application is important. Today, most of our applications are delivered in a cloud. Sometimes they are microservices. Sometimes they are Lambda functions in the cloud. They have a cold start if they are Lambda functions, even if they are microservices, no? They need to spin up fast. And the footprint of the application is one of the factors that influence how fast that spins up, influences the resources consumed, and we know that cloud is not cheap usually. So that's only one of the reasons why we would like to benefit of having our application as small as possible. Then, of course, the trust. The more dependencies you have, the more difficult it is to manage them. While we have software bills of materials now, and we integrate security in our DevOps pipeline, DevSecOps pipeline, and so on, and we have a lot of measures like Sneak to check out for vulnerabilities, still, the more dependencies you have, the more difficult it is to manage them. The more difficult it is to know what transient dependency are they bringing with. And the more difficult it is to upgrade them when you need them. Do you remember that Log4j stuff like a couple of years ago? No? There are still applications that were not updated because sometimes it's difficult to update. The less dependencies you have, the better. So why add a different dependency to implement something basic like encryption or signing when you can do that directly with the JDK? Let's talk about a few of the things from the simplest to some of the, let's say, more intermediate that you can implement with the JDK. And please make sure that you think about how you use them, because potentially when you start learning something, and if you were one of those who didn't raise the hands, you might have not seen the security API. I will show you today why it is not the greatest part of the JDK. It's still old, and hopefully at some point we will still need to rewrite it in a way, same as we did with the files class, same as we did with the time module. But at the moment we have it as it is, and because it is messy, you have to learn it messy, and you have to know what to use it. And don't believe that ChatGPT will be able to help you, because, and this is an experiment I did myself, I just asked ChatGPT to implement a very small thing, giving some random value. And it used math random, which is something you shouldn't use normally. In most cases, like 99.9 times 9 cases, okay? Nor that, nor the random class from Java util. Don't do that, okay? We use secure random. If you want to generate a random value, use something that uses the entropy on your system. There are small chances you can't do that, like you use a containerized environment that doesn't have an entropy, but there are different ways in which you solve that usually, so it's still secure random. So if you want to do something like, seem to have lost. Why it always does that when I change from presentation to demo? Help.
What happened?
It lost the signal. I'll try to put it on. It always does that when I change from presentation to demo.
Plug unplug? Yes.
I did. Oh, now it's going in. Yeah, I think. Fantastic, thank you. Sorry for this small interruption. Let's go with an example one. Up. Example one. You need to implement anything random. You use secure random. Secure random is a great tool. It allows you to generate randomly any kind of data, like even byte-wise. But of course, it's a tool that can allow you to generate numbers and different types of values. There is no reason not to use it, okay? But mind the Java security package, okay? So it's not the random from Java util, nor the utility class from lang. That's, for example, how you generate an input. You want to take it as a string because it's a byte input. You know how to base64 it, no? You base64 it, encode it to string, and that's it. Okay? Pretty easy. Let's go back. Generating random values is part of the cryptographic capabilities we can use. But we might tend to know, I will not go into full screen anymore just because I don't want it to interrupt again, okay? I think you can see it anyway. And you might think that generating random numbers is very easy, but let's step into some more known as being cryptographic things, hashing capabilities. Who knows what hashing is? Who can tell me what hashing is? What's the characteristic of a hash? Please. It's almost close to impossible to go the other way around. No, that's one of the things. Okay, there are many things to discuss about, like clashes and so on. But I think one of the most important, and you might already know, is that it's a way to digest some data such that you cannot go back from the hashed information to the plain one. And that's why we use it, for example, to store passwords. It's not that easy. There were, throughout the time, multiple algorithms that have been implemented. But the JDK, guess what? Supports the majority. So if I want to create a hash, it's pretty easy. Just about 4 lines of code. No? You use the message digest class. And here is the first part that makes this API set nasty. You don't like this, no? It gets a string as a parameter. Totally messy. But I will show you later why this was 20 years ago a good idea. And there isn't. It isn't because it doesn't really make sense. First of all, you don't know exactly which are the strings you can put there. Why did I choose SH8512? Can I use the 256 as well? Can I use another, like MD5 or, I don't know, something older? Sometimes, in most cases, yes. But what stops me from putting here something like ABC, which is nothing, no? What happens if I use here something that doesn't exist? This is not something that exists as a cryptographic function. It will throw a no such algorithm exception, which is also created as a checked exception, which is also messy. Anyway, let me finish this implementation and say I want to digest something. I have some information like string message. I want to digest, okay? How do I do that? Once I decided for an algorithm I want to use, I can simply digest it. I just need to get it as an array of bytes. And once I digest it, I will get my digested array of bytes. Maybe I should actually use byte array here to be more clear. And then I can take out a representation, a hex representation of this. But if I want to take a hex representation of this, I have to be a little bit more careful because I would need to, like, how do I take it? I would need to compose somehow. To compose somehow the answer, like string builder. Okay. And say append what? Integer to hex string of. And here's the next nasty part where I have to say something like 255 times the pointer. And I need to do that because this is integer and this is a byte. And you know the difference between integer and byte? A byte has 8 bits and an integer has 32. So I need to somehow exclude all the first part when I do change to integer. So that's why I have to write this messy stuff. But anyway, Messy a little bit, but it will work. So in the end, if I run this, it will show me a hashed. Oh, of course, I need to decide here. But what's wrong with, oh, this is the first one. No, I wanted the second one. Okay, fine enough. Simple, messy but simple. Let's go further. I will continuously check the time just to be sure that I have enough. Can we do asymmetric key pairs, for example? Of course, and it's pretty easy, and it supports all the most known algorithms like RSA, ECC, DSA, and others. I just enumerated a few of them there. If you want, we can try to generate a key pair, and I will show you how easy this is when using asymmetric key pairs. Okay, let's do a third example for that. We have a so-called key pair generator. And again, you will observe the same practice. You get a getInstance method, and you have to specify which algorithm you want. The same question, how do you know that RSA is a good value there? How do you know which are the values that you can put there? How do you know which are the correct ones? No worries, I will answer you in a second about that. I will tell you why was this a good choice 20 years ago. But for the moment, let's say that we only want to create a key pair. You have to specify the size of the pair, and then we just generate a key pair. This is easy. So this is a key pair you have generated. And the same way you can basically manage the key pairs, and then the key pair will provide you with a private and a public part. Depends on what we are doing. We are using the public or the private parts for different capabilities. For example, we can do encryption. If we do encryption, what do you use to encrypt, and what do you use to decrypt? Who can tell me? I'm doing encryption. Tell me. Public to encrypt, private to decrypt, okay? If you do digital signatures, it's the opposite, no? Private to sign, public to verify, no? Anyone can verify the signature, only the private owner can sign, okay? Both of these you can do with the JDK directly without any other dependency. So for example, now if what I want is to make encryption, I would use the cipher, where I will need to provide the transformation, for example, here. Yeah, and depends on the case, I can choose, for example, ECB and a different kind of padding, or I can choose no padding, or I can choose whatever I want. The default for this one, to be honest, for encryption, so you mean if I only put RSA here? If I only put RSA here, I think it's ECB and no padding, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to check the documentation for that, okay? That's why when I do something, I always specify exactly what I'm doing. So I do prefer to specify the algorithm and precisely the transformation. Don't rely on defaults, because you don't know what happens behind. And now, because you asked, and it's actually a very, very good question. I was going, and I'm going further, because I know I don't have the time for everything, okay? And I will anyway put this on GitHub later, so you can check them complete. But combining with your question, I'm going now to answer your question, why do I actually have to write this, and why don't I know which is the default? And so on and so forth. Why? Because it was created at times when, yeah, we didn't have principles, we didn't have many things we know now. And normally, this was a choice for extensibility. So, again, you might have heard about security providers. Did I use now any security provider? Nope, I haven't. But what I could have done is add to my class path a security provider. The most known is Bouncy Castle. And can you raise your hands if you heard about at least Bouncy Castle? A few hands, no? This is like, I like to mention it, you know the JDBC drivers? Like you want to go into a MySQL database, you use a MySQL driver. You want to connect to Oracle, you use an OCI driver, and so on and so forth. Think about security providers like the drivers for the JDBC. Same as you add a driver with an implementation so that your application knows how to connect to a specific database, same you can extend your security API capabilities by adding a security provider. You add Bouncy Castle to the class path, and then suddenly you can use different algorithms that don't come with the JDK. But you, again, don't need that normally. The most used, they are already there. Of course, if you'd like to use whirlpool hashing, or that one I will not read and I didn't use ever, but it's somewhere there in Bouncy Castle, then you have to add a provider that provides you that, because the JDK doesn't do that. But only in case you want to use one of those. So the idea of having that string there in the get instance was the following. You can have just the security provider's default coming from the JDK, but you can also add different implementations that anyone can do, even you. And when you say get instance RSA, your application will search through all the providers and will see if RSA is an option. If RSA is an option, you will get the object able to give you the RSA magic. If it's no option, then it will throw a no such algorithm exception. Okay? So that was the idea. Are there better ways in which we can implement that to make it more maintainable today? Yes, definitely we know better ways today to implement that. But I want you to understand why we have it like that and why it's messy, okay? Because if you need to use it, for the moment you'll use it this way. So the powerful guy is because actually the security API is powerful. It was just maybe implemented not in a such maintainable way, no? But that doesn't mean you cannot use it for very powerful things, including, like, for example, algorithms that you can implement yourself. If you want to implement your own cryptographic algorithm and use it instead of RSA, just create a security provider, plug it in your application, and you will be able to use it with the same APIs that you have proved now. So that was the whole idea. And that's why, I was afraid it will go black again. And that's why it's designed this way. Because then, it's exactly like you were doing with, I was saying about JDBC. Driver manager, get driver, blah, 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 blah. You use the same APIs, different implementation behind the scenes. You don't know that you are kind of decoupled. So the idea was not bad at all, if you think about it this way. Now, of course, you can initialize it, you can say, I want to encrypt, where is it? Here it is. What I want to encrypt with, of course, if I want to encrypt, you have told me already I'm using a private key, and then I say do final, meaning encrypt, and then I need something to encrypt, of course. I'm gonna be fast, because I don't have a lot of time, okay? And I encrypt this to whatever I want, okay? And then I get the encrypted value, which I can do whatever I want, and I can decrypt the other way using the decrypt mode. Fine. 3 lines of code, please. It's encryption, so I encrypt with public and I decrypt. Yeah, you're right. Good, good, good. I would have anyway got an exception. So if I would have tried that and I'm not using the right kind of key, I would have got an exception. So as a developer, testing my application, I will see that something is wrong. Yeah, thank you very much. Private is when signing. Cool, very good, you're attentive, I'm happy. Okay, good. And you decrypt, of course, using the other key. Fine. Good, let's go further. What time is it? Ooh. Okay. Symmetric key encryption. Can we use symmetric? Of course we can use symmetric key encryption. It's just same easy as with asymmetric, just that you'll observe it's a key generator. The other one was a key pair generator, because when you have a symmetric, when you have asymmetric, you have a public and a private, so you have a pair of keys which are linked one to the other. If you have symmetric keys, then you only have a key. So you have a key generator, works in the same way. And for example, if I want to use AES, I will get that, and here I made the mistake of what? Using the default, which I don't know. If I only say AES, I have no idea what transformation do I really use there. Most likely it will be something like ECB and no padding, okay? But don't rely on that. You always, again, my advice is put there exactly what you expect. And you can have different kinds of transformations. These are just a few examples that you can use, only again with the JDK. Because if you then add a provider, God knows what you put there, and you will be able to use whatever that providers you register give you. And of course, digital signatures, which is kind of the same, just that here, instead of like, do you know what you should never do in a real world application, but you always do in examples? Can someone guess? Copy-paste. Something easier than that. Copy-paste programming. Never do copy-paste. I'm going to do copy-paste programming because I want to save time, okay? But you are not allowed to do copy-paste programming. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that you have the same key pair generator. It's just then instead of a cipher, you use a different signature called no. And guess what? It uses the same get instance, and then you provide whatever you want here to use, okay? And then it would be something like signature, you initialize. If you want to sign, use the private key. If you want to verify, you use the public key. No? And then say I want to sign, I need to use the private key. Key pair get private. And then I'm just going to say update, and I'm assigning this. It will only give me the signature, so be attentive. This doesn't contain the data you sign, it only contains the signature. Okay, something like that. No, update. Sorry, the signature should come like that, sorry. Byte, signature, something like that. Is it? Anyway, I'm a little tempted that I'm doing something wrong in here. But I don't know exactly what. So signature update. Oh, it was a sign, not update, sorry. Yeah, you're right, sign. Sign, okay. Yeah, but update, I think it changes over the bytes, so that's what the difference is. So what I was looking for is the sign method, and then it's the verify for the verify. Easy as that. Okay. So again, just a few lines of code, and I didn't need to add any bouncy castle, any kind of dependency for that. And yes, I know it's messy, but I would still use that if I need it in my applications, instead of adding just a different third-party library, and that's it. Okay. Good. I have to go very fast through. How long? Do I have 10 minutes? No? Only 10 minutes. 15 minutes, okay. While I was talking, no? I was talking about it. But just to mention it very fast. So there are a few other things that are provided besides the capabilities you can put in to alter data or sign data by yourself with any cryptographic algorithm that you use. For example, if you'd want to implement low-level communication that works over HTTPS, that can be out of the box done as well very easily. You might know the socket server socket classes from the Java net package. You might have used them, for example, to implement communication, let's call it unsecure communication, meaning no SSL or TLS. But in some cases, and I would say in all of the cases today, when we should use not an unsecure connection, but a secure connection, then we would prefer to have something that provides out of the box with the possibility of registering a certificate and giving us the way to send the data without having to do so much. And again, the JDK offers us that. Normally, you have to provide something because you have at least to provide the key store and its password when we talk about the server. Or if we create a client, then you have to provide a trust store, which you can do using, at least in my example here, you see how you can provide them using parameters on the command line when starting the application. For example, I implemented this at some point years ago when I had to create a low-level communication with some kind of device, which was low-level enough and didn't support anything better than just sending bytes, arrays of bytes. It has its own protocol that I had to use to communicate with that kind of device. And at the same time, I wanted to communicate with it on a secure way, meaning that I didn't want things to go on the network unencrypted. I don't think there is an easier way to do that, even if you use a library, because if you do use a library, which I cannot name now, you would add the library, and then you would still have to write at least the same amount of lines of code. So that's it. And because we were discussing about key stores, I wanted to mention that part of the Java security package is the key store as well, which allows you to store the keys. And by the way, about that, if we are going back to the cipher, where was the cipher? Here. We used here encrypt mode, no? So you have wrap and unwrap mode, which are used in case you want to secure a key that you are storing. So if you are thinking about storing a key yourself in a key store, then make sure you use first a cipher to wrap the key. And that's again easily done because the cipher has this capability built in. So you just wrap mode the key, you use the private key to wrap the symmetric key. Now considering the key stores will have a symmetric password, and then unwrap it whenever you need it in clear. Okay. And Java access control. And if you have ever worked with JAC, you might have heard about these two main capabilities that JAC provide. But the only thing I want to discuss about the first is don't use it anymore. Okay? If you ever hear about the security manager, it has been deprecated. It was previously a way to decouple some capabilities in your own code, but we don't use that anymore. So that's down below the Jeep that deprecated the security manager, and that's the only thing I want to say about the security manager now. I only have 10 minutes, so I will have to end soon. And policy files. Policy files are not as known as I would like to. Have you used policy files? Have you ever, were you ever in need of applying somehow at the application level some restrictions, but without modifying the application? For testing purposes, for example. How would you test what your application can access in the in the file system, or maybe an endpoint or something that it accesses through a socket somewhere down below, regardless of how it's written? What if I want to test my application and see what happens if it cannot call that specific endpoint? How do you do that? Of course, there are ways to implement something further away, no, at the container level. You can block it at the container level, fine. But what if you want to test it at the application level, but without changing the application? You can use a policy file. I see that people don't really know about policy files. They are not difficult to use at all. You can put one or more policy files. It's not written here, but you can have an array of policy files if you want, for any reason. And with policy files, you can define, for example, permissions. And you can say, I want my application not to be able to read that specific path, or not to be able to access that specific port, or be able, or anyway. And then I create different test scenarios at the application level, testing, not in a container, not needing to have any kind of Docker, virtual machine, and something like that, but just defining some rules which will allow me to see that my application behaves in a way or another, and it behaves correctly, outside of the application without modifying it. Okay? I will not have time to demonstrate it, but I wanted to mention it because it's necessary. Testing certain scenarios by defining granular permissions, and of course, identifying what restriction cause what in your application. How does your application behave in those specific ways? And that's it. I'm going to close because I don't have too much time, and I want to give you also these books. I need 5 more minutes. But before I close, I want to also, I'm a supporter of course, the Romanian Java community. And thank you again for inviting me here, because I'm very happy to be in Turkey today. So at the same time, I want to invite you in October, if you want to join either as a speaker, the CFP is open, or either as an attendee to Cluj, which is one of the most beautiful cities in Romania. And I'm pretty sure you will find a lot of Java stuff that would be very informative there. But moreover, you will be also able to spot some nice sighting and pet a bear. I don't recommend petting birds, but others tried. It didn't end well, but you can try as well. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. And if anyone still wants to scan the code, if not, I will just randomly choose 2 names. So I'm waiting 2 more minutes. And please do ask questions meanwhile, so we don't lose time. If there is any question. I should have told you that you can. You asked. You could even ask through the presentation. It's no problem. Yeah.
For policy files, does that policy affect the whole application, or we can limit it to this thread has this policy, this thread has this? So can we configure it like that?
So just to make sure I understood, you asked me if you can restrict the policy files to a specific package or something like that. Honestly, I'm not sure if you can do that. I've never tried it, but it's a very good question. So I will check it out. Anyway, I never really need it, because when I use policy files, I do have like unit test cases, and I run the application for a specific case. So I didn't find the case where I need to have like allow for this package, but don't allow for this one. So that's why I don't know exactly if I can answer that question or not. I would better say nothing than say something wrong. Thank you.
And another one, again, for the policy files. So you mentioned we could also use them for testing endpoints. So comparing for mocking, so we could mock an endpoint and give, so you can't access that. What would the policy file do better compared to mocking to that endpoint?
To compare it to maybe stubbing, no? Than mocking, because it's from outside.
Yes.
So yes, it kind of, because that's what it offers, you don't change the application, but it's from outside. So it makes sure that your application somehow behaves, but from outside you fake it with something, you put a restriction. So exactly that is, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, one more question there. And then if you don't mind, I will also extract the 2 names.
Hi, thank you for interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question about key storage. For example, you mentioned that Java key store, but
yeah.
For interoperability reasons, GKS is maybe not the best idea for such programs other than Java need to access my keys, let's say that. Is the security API supports other open formats such as PAM or other publicly available encoding for key storage other than GKS?
Not as long as I know, no.
If I have to use PAM encoding. Am I saying right? PAM encoding.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
PAM encoding. I have to use other library, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, in that
it's
case,
bad
yes.
actually. Go language is
Yeah.
support PAM encoding in default.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for interested
Thank you.
presentation.
Okay, let me, because I don't have too much time. Do you want to help me to extract two names? So let's first see how many of you. Ooh, there are many. Okay, so there you are here. 38. Okay, so I put 39, and you have to help me with something that we've learned today. So should I use math random? Should I use random from Java util? What should I use? Very good point. But no, my intention is to use something I should use. So I will say just next in 39, no? 39, because if you have 38, then you have 39 here, the boundary. And then print it out. And the first for the Spring Security in action is 36. 36 is Mert. Did I pronounce it right? I'm sorry if I'm wrong with the pronunciation, guys. I really don't know if I name it correctly. And then for the Spring Start here was the second one. No, we have number 1. We can't be because it starts from 2, so I have to select again, and 2 is me, so I will not give the book to myself. So let me choose again. One more time. 4. And 4 we have Arda. Do we have you here? Cool. I hope that was interesting. Thank you very much, everyone, again. I'm waiting for you to get the books and the signature if you want, and hope to see you also later and for other events. If you have other questions, I will still be outside during the rest of the presentation, of the conference. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Woo, you're so nice. Thank you very much. I can't wait to wear that. I think we can close this one now.